Can you make millions of dollars every day in GTA Online with just the salvage yard and Autoshop? That's what I'm about to find out today in episode 4 of my Bum to Billionaire series, where my goal is to start on a brand new account and become giga rich before GTA 6 launches later this year. The biggest issue with today's challenge is that you can't play more than 3 salvage yard car robberies a week, and combined, they only pay about $1 million, which puts a damper on my grind because without the robberies, I'll just have to play the same 3 Autoshop contracts over and over and over, and that's gonna get really boring really fast. So I've got a few tricks up my sleeve to make this challenge a bit more entertaining, and I'll reveal them later in this video. I also ran into some pretty annoying griefers along the way while doing my prep missions, and as annoying as they were, Rockstar's server issues were even worse, which means there's plenty of action to look forward to in this episode for you guys, so let's not waste any more time and let's get right into it. Now, as you'd expect, the very first thing I did was buy the salvage yard. This is the Strawberry location, and it's one of my favorites because it's very well positioned right in the middle of Los Santos, and it's also very close to my Davis auto shop, which I'll be purchasing later. The whole thing cost me $3.8 million, but that's fine because I made over $10 million last episode by grinding the agency, so I've got cash to spare. Shortly after my salvage yard purchase, I got a lesson in how not to handle a gun from everyone's favorite Emirati, Yusuf Amir, who also forces me to listen to some of the cringiest hip-hop this side of the Persian Gulf. And I also meet his clumsy cousin Jamal, who's going to be my shop manager while I'm out there shooting folks and robbing their rides. After the intro, I used the ancient Windows 98 PC to plan my very first salvage yard car robbery, which is called the cargo ship robbery. And you guys will never be able to guess what I do next, because I'm about to visit the docks, scout out a cargo ship, and later I'll board that very same ship to steal a car from one of the containers. I know, super complicated stuff, and things start off very well when I enter this cabin to take a photo of the shipping manifest, only to find a pristine Republican Space Rangers collectible standing next to the documents. And the guard outside must be thinking I'm some kind of loser because as soon as I picked up my big green action figure, he immediately snuck up behind me and kicked me in the butt. I returned the favor, and then for the next prep mission, I broke into a document forgery office near the docks, stole some random dude's uniform, and then blew it all to smithereens with my sticky bombs because document forgery sucks and nobody should ever have to play that business. On my way back, I came across this guy on an oppressor, and at first I thought he was trying to shoot me down, but later I realized that he was just trying to destroy the jammer mounted on the building, so I helped him out by destroying it for him. And this is more proof that not every single Mark II pilot you see in a public lobby is a griefer. It's only about 99.9% of them. Then, after a lengthy duel with a bunch of Merryweather thugs, I stole the world's ugliest helicopter, and we'll be using this later in the finale to airlift one of the cargo containers from the ship. Things were going pretty smoothly for the most part until I delivered the skylift and tried to leave the area on this NPC motorbike because right as I was exiting, this happened. Wow, you're a brave one, aren't you? Sneaking up on a defenseless person? Anyways, I tried to make things a little bit more interesting by fighting back, but I got the sneaking suspicion that something just wasn't quite right with this guy. I mean, I can't say for sure, but it looks like our boy is using one of those mod menus, and my suspicions were soon confirmed when he no-scoped me from the other side of this concrete wall, which should have blocked the explosion, so I decided to not waste any more time with Mr. Hacker and jumped right into a new lobby. And it was there that I was immediately rewarded with a desync within 5 minutes of joining, so thanks for that, Rockstar. After some searching, I finally found a lobby that worked and immediately started up the boat prep, but as I was returning to my salvage yard with the trailer hooked up to this pickup truck, I was assaulted from behind yet again by another griefer, and wouldn't you guess it, this one's on an Oppressor Mark II. At first, I thought he was trying to be a nice guy by blowing up the NPC enemies chasing me, but his next missile went straight for my dome, and his intentions became quite clear to me right then. I was getting sick of his crap, so I summoned my own oppressor, and the two of us decided to have a good old-fashioned duel, at which point we realized that our missiles absolutely suck, and neither of us could manage to kill the other because we just kept on ducking and weaving through everything as the Oppressor Mark II is far more maneuverable than its own missiles. And the only way to kill one is if it foolishly runs headfirst into the missile or tries to flee in a straight line, which nobody with a functional brain actually does, since the best tactic is to turn hard as soon as you get a missile lock on your tail, and you can also hit the flares to add an additional layer of security. After this back and forth, I decided the best next tactic was to bait him into expending all 20 of his missiles, which he did, but then he wisely bailed out of his oppressor and fled in a parachute. So I decided to return home with my equipment instead of chasing this guy around for another 5 minutes. In the next prep mission, I killed the world's toughest pilot and destroyed a bunch of Maverick helicopters, because what this does is cut down the strength of Merryweather's security during the finale while you're escaping, allowing me to make it out of there much more easily should things get too hot. And get hot they sure did, because I suck at stealth, so naturally I alerted all of the guards while I was trying to sneak around on the cargo ship, and things went sideways really fast. However, despite all the alarms and the screaming, I still managed to shoot down a bunch of bad guys and secure the right container for my pilot, who then airlifted it to safety with the skylift that I stole earlier. And I didn't allow a single Merryweather helicopter to touch him, as I was covering his rear end with my Sea Sparrow. After securing the Paragon R and selling it to Yusuf for a cool $389,000, I then proceeded to my next salvage yard mission, which is the McTony robbery. And this time, we're stealing a hijack Rustin, which is one of the coolest looking cars in the entire game. The max sale value for this one is $347,000, and the retail price is $430,000. So we aren't actually losing that much money by selling a stolen Rustin, which is pretty nice. Thanks to the Oppressor Mark II that I farmed in my second episode, I was able to do all the prep work effortlessly. Just take a look how easy it is to scope out the submarine when you have a Mark II. You just fly in, shoot some missiles, park your Mark II on top of the sub like this, take some photos, and then you fly away. It is legit that easy, and the other missions weren't much harder because once again, I just fly in, drop the bad guys, and fly out. Here's another example. Look at this mission where you infiltrate the docks and assassinate McTony's security team to drop the Kraken a Visa submarine from this giant crane. I didn't actually have to pull the trigger on my rifle a single time because I just shot missiles at anything and everything that moved. And then because I was too lazy to climb the crane, I just flew up there on my Mark II, parked it like this and hit the switch, and then I parachuted down into the water. Took me less than 2 minutes for the whole entire thing. And that's why you guys should try to buy the Mark II ASAP. Whenever you're on a brand new account, it's just too good to ignore. Forget the griefing and the stigma and all that stuff. This is simply the best grinder's vehicle in the game, no question about it. However, I didn't have my trusty Mark II inside the confines of the submarine during the finale. Instead, I had to rely on my positioning as well as my skills with a gun. Sometimes, when regular guns don't work, you need to pull out an even bigger gun. And if your enemy happens to be superhuman like McTony's head of security over here, you just need to peek him like this around the corner and hope that his dogshit AI glitches out. Which it did, so I was able to snag the security codes quite easily on this run, and I promptly beached the submarine by driving it nose first into the Los Santos coastline. Then I escaped the police by heading straight for the railway tracks and into the tunnels, which can render the otherwise omnipotent cops of GTA 5 completely useless as they fumble around helplessly, trying to zero in on your last location. Then I simply drove back to the salvage yard and delivered the Rustin to the docks for an easy $347,000. We're already at $736 grand right now from the first two robberies, and if I do the third and finale one for the week, I'll have made my first $1 million from the salvage yard. Well, actually, it's more like $996,000, but if you also include the bonuses from the robbery, it's well over $1 million. So here it is, salvage yard robbery number 3 for the day. And this one's the Gangbanger robbery, where I'm supposed to break into a police station and free one of Jamal's junkie friends while the other officers are choking out on fart gas. I'm off to a good start already here because it took me less than 3 minutes to scope out the Mission Row police station, but during the second prep mission, on my way back with the Maverick helicopter, I was met with this a-hole who chased me around the map and he kept shooting homing missiles at me until I got stuck between two buildings, and then this happened. Now, I want you guys to remember his name, Josiah666, because for the next 10 minutes straight, what I did to this little edgelord was so bad that it probably breaks 7 different rules in the Geneva Convention. First, I demonstrated how to properly pilot a Mark II by using my first missile to bait him into turning, then I timed the second one so that it would hit him head on. After that, I did a vehicle prep for the McTony robbery, and while I was AFK, Josiah snuck up on me and blew up my car, making it clear to me that he hadn't learned his lesson. So I met him on the streets over here, sidestepped his attempt at vehicular homicide, and gunned him down with my carbine. He wisely returned his oppressor before I could blow it up, but he wasn't wise enough to evade a sticky bomb to the face. And you just know idiots like this have never gone up against an Imani Tech vehicle before because they always try to fly right next to you and hover there all confused like a deer in headlights. Then, after a few words of encouragement, I immediately followed his ass to the storm drain and put him face down into the sewage where he belongs. Then I did it again, and again, only this time, he was trying to get inside his Sparrow helicopter before I smacked it around with my Virtue and blew it up. Then, after I chased him around some more, the poor guy decided to take refuge inside a store. And so at that point, I was starting to get bored. So I let him be and continued on my journey to $1 million with the salvage yard. With all the prep work done, I'm finally ready for the Gangbanger robbery. After dropping some BZ gas into the air conditioning units and giving the whole station a bad case of asthma, I put on my gas mask and tased some cops, and while I'm not allowed to kill them, I can still stomp the crap out of them with my boots. Then I extracted King Tiny from his jail cell, and if you want to lose the cops fast on this particular mission, just follow these tracks like me, and you can get to LSIA in no time because police officers in GTA 5 aren't programmed to chase you on tracks, and their helicopters lose sight of you once you pass under a few bridges. After King Tiny gave me the location for the ballas, I went there on my Mark II, gave them an ass whooping, worse than the one they got from CJ in 2005 by the way, and stole their ride. Then I sold it to Yusuf once again for an easy $260,000. And that right there brings me to $1 million total for the day just by doing salvage yard car robberies. And now I've run into a problem. I've literally exhausted all of my robbery options for the whole week, so I can't do any more of these. But what I can do is a few tow truck jobs, and most of you may not know this, but it's one of the most underrated sources of semi-passive income in the entire game. Now let me explain. Just like your nightclub, the salvage yard tow service has a hidden popularity meter, and the more vehicles you tow in a row, the higher it goes, up until it hits its max value of 100% at 4 vehicles. Now, from that point onwards, as long as you bring in just one car every 2 in-game days, you'll make $24,000 guaranteed from the wall safe. But why stop there when you can do 2 tow truck jobs every single hour to make $80,000 from vehicle salvage? You'll still get your $24,000 in passive safe income, but now you're also earning an additional $80,000 every single hour just from 6 to 7 minutes of work, and that's exactly what I'm about to do. This way, I'll earn over $100 grand every hour just for hooking up a few cars to my tow truck and driving them back to the salvage yard. I'm also going to purchase an Autoshop because that's the second business I need for this challenge, and it will unlock the super exciting Autoshop contracts, which are basically mini heists, and the 2 most profitable ones are the Union Depository contract as well as the ECU job. But before I can get there, I have to first visit the LS car meet, and over there I'm introduced to Hao, who runs the HSW workshop. And I also meet the 2 worst characters in all of GTA Online, KDJ and Sasanta, who just can't stop making out over the phone whenever they're yelling instructions at you, and their banter does get annoying really fast, but the Autoshop is still an excellent source of money with really fun missions, so I guess I'll just have to suck it up and put up with their shenanigans whenever I'm doing an Autoshop contract. The very first thing I do is recover Sasanta's Tailgater S from the cops who've impounded it, and this allows me to start my very first Autoshop contract, the Union Depository. Everyone's going to tell you that this is the best Autoshop contract of them all, and they're right, because it pays $300,000, unlike any other contract on your board. Those only pay about $170,000 to $180,000. It also doesn't take any longer in terms of prep work, so here's how you do it. First, you visit the Del Perro Heights apartment complex and invade the private domicile of this very wealthy businessman. Then, you mow down all of his thugs and kill the man in question for hanging modern art on his apartment walls. After that, you steal his keycard, which should give you access to the Union Depository vault door. Then, you steal one of his security vehicles and stash it in a parking lot right next to the bank. At this point, you've already secured your entry point and your getaway vehicle, but we'll only be using one of these 2 things in the finale, and you'll see why in just a minute. But first, we need to do one of the easiest prep missions in the entire game, where you steal a police maverick from LSIA and tail this bank manager who's driving around in his Porsche. Once he reaches this hotel and gets out of his midlife crisis sports car, you can then use the scanner on the police maverick to take some compromising photos of him cheating on his wife, and this will be used as blackmail material by Sasanta to acquire the code for the bank vault, and you're done with all the prep work, just like that. That barely takes 10 to 15 minutes, and now you can go into the bank, show your illegally acquired ID pass to the guard, open up the vault, and steal all the shiny gold bars inside. Then you simply walk out, drop a bunch of these SWAT officers, and you drive away in your getaway car. Sounds pretty simple, right? And it is. Only takes 1 or 2 tries before you memorize all the cop spawns, and you can easily finish the whole heist in 20, maybe 25 minutes maximum. Besides, I've got a trick here to make it even easier by cutting out the getaway car chase entirely in the finale, and here's how you do it. First, you loot your gold like normal and exit the vault into the parking area as usual. Then, instead of heading towards Sasanta's Tailgater S or whatever robbery contract finale vehicle you're using, you take out some of the police, you turn left here, you use this cruiser as cover to kill all the SWAT officers who are dropping in from this chopper, and then you run across this path here and onto this road where you'll always find a police car headed towards you. Hijack it and drive it to the waypoint marked on my map. The keen-eyed among you will recognize that this is the Vinewood PD, the exact same building that we used to steal a Maverick during the Diamond Casino finale. And we're going to use the same trick here. Just climb up to the roof, steal your free government-issued helicopter, and fly to the client. You'll lose your wanted level along the way, without even trying by the way, and you'll also get to the drop off in half the time compared to our normal route using the getaway car. And for the ECU job, which is one of my more favorite Autoshop contracts, I've got a special tip as well to significantly cut down your completion times on this contract. You know how in the finale, Sasanta and KDJ ask you to destroy the brake cylinders on the train engine? Well, most folks simply shoot at them, or they drive alongside the train and plant sticky bombs on the cylinders like this. Well, you actually don't have to do any of this. Instead of chasing the train, go to the interception point to trigger its arrival, then pull a 180, turn back around, and drive about 300 meters to the signal post right here, the one next to this cabin. Get out, climb up, and wait for the train to come to you. As it approaches, pull out your rifle and shoot the pilot in the Annihilator stealth helicopter. You can also kill it after boarding the train, and I recommend bringing the Hustler loadout for this mission, as it has the Bullpup Rifle Mark II. More importantly though, the Hustler loadout also contains some pipe bombs, and what we're going to do with the pipe bombs is this. We're going to drop down onto the train, then we'll take a couple steps forward so we're standing just a foot away from the edge of this red colored container, then we'll pull out our gun and aim at the center line of this train engine, exactly at this spot, which is about a third of the way from the top. While aiming down your sights, throw one of your pipe bombs and you'll destroy the first 2 brake cylinders at the same time. Then simply drop down and aim here to the right side of the driver's cabin, right on the edge of the logo underneath the window, and throw a second bomb. Then throw a third one at the same spot and you'll kill both of the front brake cylinders as well, bringing the train to a complete stop within seconds. And folks, this is how you stop the train the proper way in the ECU job. You let it come to you, you jump down, toss some pipe bombs at the axles, and you steal your ECU. No more chasing the train around like a pleb, no need to waste any time, just a quick in and out job for an easy $172,000. Since I have an auto shop, I also decided to do a few vehicle deliveries, and while these don't pay that much money, compared to contracts at least, they're still good if you want easy bite-sized content for some extra cash on the side. I got $25,000 for that Rebla GTS delivery, and just for comparison, I decided to do a custom bike delivery for my motorcycle club, and this one paid a lot more money. Twice as much cash, in fact, because I modified the zombie chopper for $10,000 and sold it to the buyer for $60,000, so my profit was 50 grand. Way more than what I got for my Autoshop car delivery. At this stage, I have about $6.1 million in cash, but I've still only done 2 of the 8 different Autoshop contracts, and there's still a lot more cash to be made today, so I proceeded to grind 3 more contracts. First, I did the agency deal, and in this one, I break into an underground IAA facility to interrogate a double-crossing narcotics dealer who was supposed to provide KDJ with his top-secret recipe, but instead of giving it to us, he sold it to someone else. So I decided to beat the location out of him and personally delivered the Krabby Patty recipe to KDJ's client for $167,000. Now, I know I made it sound easy, and it was, but not everything went according to plan, because during one of the setup missions, I was rudely interrupted by this guy who started killing me for seemingly no reason, and soon, I returned the favor by sniping him. Then the griefer pulled up on his Mark II, so I brought out the Imani Tech Virtue and gave him a quick lesson on how to blow up people the proper way. First, I ran him over, then I reversed into him, and before he could glitch out on me with his shitter internet, I sent him straight to Jesus with a sticky bomb. Then I also did the prison contract, and this one's like a miniature version of the Prison Break OG heist, only this time, instead of rescuing someone, we're gonna break into Bolingbroke Penitentiary and assassinate a few double-crossing rats who were snitching on their own gangs to the Popos. So I take my boy Lil D for a tour of Los Santos, and he identifies the targets for me by deliberately starting a fight with some gang members to get himself incarcerated in Bolingbroke. Then I create my own entry point into the prison by stealing this trailer from a movie set, and it contains a ramp that I'll use to jump inside Bolingbroke during the finale. During the finale, I drove around in this stolen police cruiser and blew up the targets who were marked on the map for me, and I kept myself safe by constantly munching on snacks and topping up my armor. With all the targets dead, I extracted my inside man, Lil D, from the prison, and the 2 of us escaped in this police car because earlier I accidentally blew up Santa's car and I didn't want to backtrack, so I just went along with whatever I could find. In the end though, I got paid $157,000 after Sasanta and KDJ took their cut. For my last Autoshop heist of the day, I did the data contract, and this one's definitely a bit tricky, at least the first few times you do it, because you're literally invading the Merryweather CEO's base to steal some hard drives, and you have to kill a whole bunch of his thugs along the way. Not only that, but you also have to protect Avi Schwartzman as he uploads the data, and you'll have to deal with increasingly difficult waves of Merryweather enemies. First you get foot soldiers, then you get buzzards, half-tracks, and at the end, they even throw some weaponized Tampas at you. After all these contracts, I was sitting on $6.8 million worth of cash, and so I did another vehicle delivery to finish off the day. The next day, I realized that I wasn't going to make it purely on tow truck jobs and Autoshop contracts alone, so I decided to mix things up by adding up a Cayo Perico into my grind, and I also decided to purchase a nightclub to further boost my passive income. I'm already getting some decent cash with the tow truck jobs, but I want at least $200,000 per hour in passive income, and with the nightclub purchase, I'll be able to achieve that goal. I'm introduced to Gay Tony, and after doing a couple setup missions for my West Vinewood nightclub, in which I steal some equipment and hire our very first DJ, we're officially in business. Of course, I also purchased the staff and equipment upgrades because without those, the warehouse products produce very slowly. And right now, I only have a document forgery office and Coca-Cola lockup, so I need to buy some more MC businesses before I start raking in the big bucks with my nightclub. I have the Criminal Enterprise starter pack for my PC copy of the game, and this comes with a free cash factory in the Grand Sonora Desert, which is also one of the best locations for that business, as it's right next to the Grand Sonora Coca-Cola lockup, as well as the Grand Sonora Math Lab. After a quick setup mission, my cash factory is now active, and I just need to purchase a math lab now because I'll be linking the 3 best MC businesses to my nightclub warehouse. They are the math lab, the cash factory, as well as the Coca-Cola lockup. I already have 2 of them, so now I just need the math lab. And yes, I'm also doing tow truck jobs along the way whenever my businesses are generating product, and this way I can max out my passive income since there are no dead zones in my grind. I'm always doing something, even if it's just something stupid like a fooligan job for Dax. And speaking of Dax, I managed to do all 10 fooligan jobs for this episode, which means I'm now eligible for the upgraded Acid Lab equipment. After installing it, I also upgraded all 3 of my main MC businesses and resupplied them so they could generate product while I was busy with heists like No Way Out and Dr. Dre. I know I can't make millions as fast as I want from the Autoshop and tow truck jobs alone, so I'm also mixing in other content like FIB files and the occasional Cayo Perico, so I'm always doing something new, something different every hour, and this way I'm able to make tons of cash without boring myself to death from grinding the same 3 or 4 Autoshop contracts. At the end of the day, all my passive businesses were full, and I also had a full Acid Lab, which I sold for some easy money by doing the police sting cell mission. I also had a full Coca-Cola lockup, which I sold for $525,000 by flying some dodos, and while the cell mission was extremely boring and nearly put me to sleep, the money I got at the end was quite nice, I will be honest with that. Right after that though, I sold my full cash factory with my friend in a public lobby, and I got extremely lucky because the game gave me the Pounder truck instead of multiple vehicles, so my buddy was able to defend me with his Mark II as I drove to the drop-off. Fortunately, nobody tried to mess with us, and because I had the high demand bonus, I made $441,000 rather than the default $367,000. I also tried to sell my math in a public lobby, but Rockstar servers decided to take a doo-doo on me and gave me the spinning disc of doom for 10 minutes straight. So I quit the loading screen, restarted the game, and went invite only to sell instead. After my math sale, I now have over $3.5 million in cash, and this is after all those business upgrades that I did earlier, and I still had some product in my nightclub, so I sold those as well, and now I've got $4.5 million to spend on episode 5, A Bum to Billionaire, and I'll be buying something truly special for the next episode, so once again, take your guesses in the comments as to what it will be. And here's a quick hint, it's tied to police work. That brings us to the end of today's episode though. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to drop a like on this video if you found it informative and entertaining, of course. Consider subscribing to the channel if you are new and you want to see more content just like this. Check me out over on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram, specifically twitch.tv/hazardoushdtv, and I'll see you guys in the next Bum to Billionaire episode. Adios, amigos.